Get ready for sports news and entertainment. All right, here, your 7 minutes with Simmons starts right now.
Yo, everybody. Welcome to episode number 2 of 7 Minutes with Simmons. I'm your host, Christian Simmons. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 1. And here you're back for episode number 2, so that is fantastic. Really appreciate all the support, guys. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a tanker spill on the QEW back in January, a little bit about brake checking, some accident statistics, and maybe a little bit about Norway. Very safe on the roads are they out in Europe? Specifically Norway, they consistently rank as one of the safest countries to drive in. It's very interesting. We're going to dive into that and specifically about this accident, and we're going to kind of break a few things down. But before we do that, has anybody else seen this brand new documentary? I believe it's on Netflix, maybe a couple other platforms. It's The American Manhunt, Osama bin Laden, tracking him down. So interesting. 3 episodes long. I was glued to my TV screen for, the 3.5, maybe 4 hours of content that documentary provided. Just so interesting, obviously breaking down the attacks of 9/11 and then going into the 9 to 10 year process of tracking this guy down, what it looked like across the Middle East from Afghanistan all the way to Jalalabad, where the Navy SEALs, the SEAL Team 6, took him down in a compound just outside of a tourist area out there in the Middle East. Very interesting documentary. If you haven't checked it out, I highly suggest it. Give it a look. American Manhunt, Osama bin Laden on Netflix and most other platforms. But let's get into today's content. Tanker spill in January. If you live here in Niagara Falls, you might be familiar with this one. A man is facing charges following his involvement in the accident. It was on January 12th. An SUV collided with an oil tanker on the QEW 40 rebound just off of Tufford Road. Both vehicles go flying into the ditch. The tanker itself hits the deck, tips out to the right, and spills a massive amount of diesel fuel onto the ground, resulting in a complete closure of the motorway for hours. Now, nobody had any idea what was going on. I myself was on the roads that morning. In particular, one of my classmates, Marcus, huge shout out to him, Marcus Lubin from Niagara College, was stuck in traffic coming from Beamsville. This accident was hugely effective to the drivers in the Niagara Falls area. And guess what? It wasn't an accident. The OPP have charged 59-year-old Mir Karim Musafi with dangerous driving just a few days ago. There's reports of a black Mercedes brake checking people, causing all sorts of commotion on the roads, supposedly clogging traffic, causing delays, just enough to induce this accident. Now, who knows whether he is found guilty or innocent? He's due in court on June 9th. In what is just another example of terrible driving and decision-making on the roads here in Ontario. And this brake checking thing, guys, can we stop with the brake checking? Who has time in their day to be brake checking people? Don't you have somewhere to be? I don't know about you. I go driving, I get on the road and in behind my wheel for the sole purpose of getting from point A to point B. I'm not out there causing issues for other people. I'm also not out there delaying my potential arrival at wherever it is I'm trying to go. What is the purpose? The road rage and the brake checking, we gotta stop. And it's killing people, guys. It is killing and injuring people. 1.19 million people annually are dying from on-road collisions. That is a lot of people. That is 1.2 million people a year. An additional 40 to 50 million will experience some sort of non-fatal injury, with the majority of this number receiving some kind of disability due to the accident. And 66% of these fatalities and injuries alone are in direct correlation to dangerous driving. That's speeding, erratic, not distracted. That is specifically what happened in this case. Dangerous driving, folks, it kills people, it injures people, and it disables people for the rest of their lives. And these numbers are only getting worse each year. There's a serious problem here in Ontario and in Canada. Since 2022, there has been an increased number of deaths and injuries on the road by over 15%. That is huge. That is huge. On a 60 million or 40, 50, 60 million number of injuries, that is a massive percent that we are growing. Since 2022, that's 3 years. In 3 years, we are causing more than 20 million more accidents a year. That's causing injuries and deaths. Something has to change, guys. I myself have been totally taken aback by reading some of these statistics. I am going to do whatever I can to drive safer, and will ask everybody else listening to this podcast to please do the same. Let's try and clean up the roads. Let's be like Norway. Finally, let's dive into Norway. This is really interesting. Norway consistently ranks as the safest country to drive in, mainly due to great road infrastructure. They're built fantastically out there. They got a great tax-paying system that gets immediately thrown into the economy. They're doing fantastic work in Norway, but also due to their culture prioritizing driver safety. That's something I read online today. They're prioritizing driver safety. How are we not doing the same thing here in Canada? I mean, even just today, I'm going over the Skyway. I got some guy blazing through traffic, probably 50 to 60 kilometers over the speed limit, and other drivers are keeping themselves safe from this guy. Not him. He's not prioritizing driver safety. It's the potential victims that have to keep themselves safe. It's just backwards, guys. Let's see what we can do. Let's try and be safe out there on the roads. Drive safely, folks. And really quickly, before we end this episode, I do have to apologize. In episode number 1, there was some talk about Brendan Shanahan, a couple of things that were, I guess, not exactly correct come time of that release of that episode. I apologize. It was recorded a day prior to the update. Brendan Shanahan, the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs, has officially been fired. No more Shanahan in Toronto, but that has nothing to do with driver safety. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next Toronto Maple Leafs episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. That is your episode number 2 of 7 Minutes with Simmons. We'll see you next time. Peace.